Hey everybody, Steve from 40 Plus BJJ here. If you're not familiar with me yet, this is my group, and I wanted to jump on and talk about something real quick, just flash across the brain pan, so I wanted to bring it up, and that is a strategy that is basically guaranteed to help you get better faster, and also become cyclical in the sense that you're going to make the people around you better at the same time. So I've already talked about some other strategies along these lines. One of them that I've spoken about is being dedicated to problem solving, and this gets back into the whole concept of being more committed to learning than to winning when it comes to your daily training. And everybody knows this for the most part, but yet experience will show how difficult that can be to implement. So I have other videos that go into that. This is sort of taking the next step with that. And this does presume, this is a bit of advice today, presumes that you do have a bit of experience. You're not going to be a brand new white belt with this, but you'll be at least, say, a mid to higher level white belt, and then this advice will transfer all the way on up for the rest of your career, even as a multi-level black belt, what have you. Here it is. Show the people around you how to beat you. And I can't emphasize how powerful that is, really, if you commit to it. So what I mean by that, a lot of times when people are rolling, training live, they always want to have this little air of mystery, this little, I kind of got one over on you. And even if somebody says, oh, you were doing that really well, it was shutting me down, or, you keep tapping me with that, and you go, yeah, I just like to do this, and you give this vague answer. If you haven't done this, you know somebody that's done this, right? And it's sort of like holding the cards close to your chest, like, I don't want to give this away, so they give you sort of a pseudo answer, but it's very much like somebody who has a great recipe and you ask them for the recipe and they leave some of the ingredients out, and then you make it exactly to spec and you're like, that does not taste the same, right? So in this case, you have to be a bit selfless, or what appears to be selfless, and actually give your training partners or your students, if you're teaching, give them the recipe. So when you have created the problem now, so instead of thinking just in terms of solving the problem, now you're the one who's created the problem for them to solve. There is absolute validity in them organically figuring it out. You're not just handing them an answer that they have to actually feel the pressure and test it. But when you clearly have it, and then you're comparing notes, you're reflecting on the training session, the training experience, and they will say to you, how's that happening? Or, man, you keep just killing me with that. I can't figure it out. Show them exactly how to beat you. So what does this force you to do? Of course, it forces you to make new adaptations, because you have essentially stripped away your advantage, at least in terms of knowledge. Now they're going to have to adapt, and you're basically giving them the roadmap to do it. They may not do it today, they may not do it next week, but eventually they're going to do this. And that is also going to force you to be better. And then, if everyone has this, what appears to be selfless, but in a greater sense, it's also selfish, because it's just an egoless selfishness, which means you're more committed to the process than to the result at that moment, that day, right? You want everybody to be better around you. You're helping to make them better. Everybody gets better. Now, of course, that built into that is the recognition that you're going to have to fail, right? Because they're going to start beating you, but that's okay. And just to give you a little personal history on this, I was training at my home school, Boston BJJ, for many years, and when I knew that I was going to be making a move, I held off on making that move about an hour away to where I live now, where my ultimately wound up setting up my school, SBG East Coast, and I really resisted the move for, it was probably like a year and a half, because I felt like I was going to be lost without my home school, all my training partners, because if I had to go, although I knew I was going to open up a place, but if I had to start all over with my own students from scratch, all my current students I was going to have to leave behind. I was going to hand them over to my friend John to teach, and I was still, in addition to having my own program, I was still training at my home school to get time in with all my peers. So, it was like, man, I'm going to be left far behind. I'm going to have to build up this whole new crop of people. But you know what? When I did that, it was the greatest thing I ever did, because I had to put everything into my pond. Okay, like I had to build up my students, and now, I look at some of my senior students, even some of my blue belts, like how tough they are rolling, and that's because I held nothing back. So, you start off way ahead, you're already a black belt. In my case, by the time I had to start over from scratch with a whole new batch of students. But wait a few years, if you follow what I'm telling you, you show them how to beat everything that you do, you're going to have some monsters and produce them very quickly. The athletes, of course, are always going to be monsters if you give them the information, but you'll even bring up people that you wouldn't suspect that just put in the time and the work, because you're going to give them the blueprint to get better, and then you're going to give them the specific ways to beat you when they encounter your pressures, and you're going to give them the specific ways to beat other pressures that they're encountering, and then everybody learns to think for themselves, and everybody becomes more committed to the process. So follow that advice. It will pay dividends, even if it can be hard on the ego on any given day, and hope that helps. I'll talk to you soon. One last thing. If you would like to check out any of my courses, in particular what I consider to be somewhat groundbreaking pillars of jiu-jitsu courses, check out 40plusbjj.com. The other thing I have been doing is, if you'd like to get my help personally on something, whether it's setting up a training program, if maybe the instruction you're getting, you like where you're training, but some of the instruction is geared more towards people that are very athletic or flexible or competitive, and maybe it's just sort of like the goals of your training environment aren't quite what you're looking for, or there's sometimes people are having issues with any number of things, injuries, people going too hard, always trying to beat them up, they're starting to get frustrated, how to deal with social dynamics, especially if you're the old guy or older woman in a room full of young studs, and sort of how they treat you, almost marginalized. Man, I have seen it all, been through it all, talked to so many people about it, and I realize this is one of the things that seldom gets addressed. Everybody's always talking about training, and they'll say, oh, just keep training, don't worry about it, just show up, just ask your instructor. But yet, time and time again, I have people messaging me, hitting me up on my email, and asking me for advice and questions on how to deal with these situations and frustrations. And you realize, I'm glad they asked, because all those people that didn't get the answers that were satisfactory, those are the ones that we talk about when it's like, out of every 100 people that start jiu-jitsu, 99 are not going to get a black belt. And I don't know what the exact statistic is, but that's probably quite true, right? And so you realize like how many people get lost along the way for all these reasons. And I did another video called The Real Reason People Quit Jiu-Jitsu, which is worth checking out. But what I'm able to do a lot of times is kind of get to the heart of the matter for people and give them some advice that can help keep them engaged. So most people only think about investing in themselves when it comes to monthly tuition, going to a seminar, or doing private lessons. But basically what I can also do is set up a formal Skype call with you guys. You could email me at info@40plusbjj.com, and I'm happy to help you through any type of training or training related, whether it's social, psychological, injury prevention, injury bounce back, like in terms of I'm not going to overstep and try and pretend I'm a physical therapist, but I can give you a lot of insight into sort of how to approach coming back in to complement what you're getting from your doctors and your medical practitioners for training approach and how to manage that psychologically, because I know how difficult that can be. So any questions like that, feel free to reach out to me and we'll set up a call. Otherwise, 40plusbjj.com, and I will talk to you guys soon.